I'm the recovery Ronin. How many times have you had a moment where you knew exactly what you were supposed to do? You had a goal to do something or a goal to stop doing something, even a small action, and you still didn't do it. Hundreds, thousands, where you understood the problem, you felt the consequences, even wanted change, and something in you pulled you right back into the same pattern. Vast majority of us are there. That gap between knowing and doing, between wanting and becoming, between hope and believing, that's where most people live, and it's where most people stay stuck. That is the house of stability. This video is about the why and the how of healing. Yes, you can heal, whether addiction, mental health, behavioral disorders, cardiovascular disease, obesity, most diabetes, chronic stress disorders, they're able to be healed. My fourth wall awakening modality, why it's necessary and how it actually works. When anyone gains awareness, understanding, and acceptance of this process, the one I'm going to go through in this video, they will learn the freedom of choice. With this knowledge, any effort in any context will allow you to continue to improve and become your better self. Step by step, rep by rep, the change is real. I am so desperate to share this with people because I've seen it work for thousands of others that I've worked with. For most of my life, I thought my problem was my anxiety, my addiction, anger, trauma, loss, pain, loneliness, boredom, all the things we label, the expressions of them, and then try to fix them one by one. And I did what everybody does. I chased the solutions on the outside, different tools, different programs, different ideas. I read better distractions, hoping something would finally stick because I was so desperate to be more, to be better. But underneath all of it, nothing was really changing because no one ever showed me awareness or the skill beneath the problem. If you slow down, really look at it. This isn't overthinking. This is the seeking of truth. What simplicity is. A pattern starts to appear. It's not that the event breaks us. It's the story we attach to it. Not the substance, the addiction, the parents, or our childhood, but what we create as an identity from them. The mind interprets, the body reacts, and the nervous system does it over and over until it gets locked in. And over time, that loops become our identity, our personality, our personal reality built from the beliefs about the world, others, and who we think we are. Two people can live the same moment and walk away with completely different lives, right? If 8 of us watched an accident and they interviewed 8 of us, we're all standing right next to each other, and they asked us to tell them what we saw, probably not 2 of us would give the exact same story. Yes, any 2 people can live the same moment and walk away with completely different lives, not because of what happened, but because of how they processed it. And yet we keep trying to treat the reaction, the expression, the outcome without ever learning how to step outside of it, observe it, challenge it, go down and find where choice actually exists. This was my obsession. Why can't I change? Why can't all the people I see suffering who want so desperately to free themselves, why can't we find our freedom? And I found a choke point of our personal reality, the space of power. That's the gap. That's the missing piece. We try to treat anxiety without teaching someone how to see the belief creating it. We try to treat anger without questioning the interpretation behind it. Like traffic, right? Is somebody cutting you off in traffic stressful? Do you have to react that hard? Do you know why you're overreacting? Could it just be that maybe they were distracted, you were in their blind spot? As long as something didn't happen, why are you screaming and losing your shit? Is it because they cut you off? No. It's because if you're attaching to the beliefs that somehow the world needs to cater itself around you, and then when somebody makes a mistake, they're an idiot trying to kill you. When you make a mistake, I was just distracted. We try to treat addiction without awareness of the narratives driving the craving or the pain that shapes the brain's need for relief in the first place. We start on the outside, but real change begins on the inside. So without, so within. Know thyself. This isn't new and it's not mystical, but certainly consistent everywhere in our history and our science. Before behavior changes, there has to be a new ability, the ability to see, to pause, to not be owned by your first reactions, the space between your beliefs, your perceptions, and attitudes. That's where the fourth wall awakening comes in, because there's a moment, a very real moment between knowing and becoming, between saying you want to change and actually doing it. That invisible barrier is what I call the fourth wall. It's the illusion that knowledge should be enough. How many doctors and therapists are experts in healthy habits but live according to their own impulses? Do as I say, not as I do. If knowledge was what worked, every expert on health would live happy and healthy lives. But it's not. Without training, without practice, without learning how to do work in your own mind and body, intention stays stuck as intention. Hope without skill, desire without the ability to show up. That's not transformation, that's fantasy. There's an old experiment where rats were placed in beakers of water. On their own, they would swim for a short time before giving up, maybe 10, 15 minutes. But if they were pulled out right before they drowned, allowed to recover, they would dry them off, feed them, get them warm, put them back in, something changed. They didn't just swim for a little longer. They lasted exponentially longer. They went from 10 to 15 minutes before they drowned to 40 to 48 hours. Not because they were stronger, but because they believed escape was possible. That's the beginning of being different. Hope says, maybe I'll change. Maybe someday when things happen, when something else does something for me, I hope it's there. Belief says, I felt it. I know it's there. It's mine. Hope creates expectation. I hope I get out. I hope I get the job. I hope I stay clean and sober. And when those expectations aren't met, it often leaves us resentful, disconnected, waiting for life to give us something it never promised. Belief is different. Belief is trust. Not trusting in just outcomes, but in how you show up. I believe I'm responsible for this moment. I believe my effort matters. I believe meaning is created, not given. I have a role to play. You have a role to play. We're not just victims of circumstance. Outcomes aren't in my control, but effort, consistency, perceptions, and attitudes are. That's where power lives. That's where excuses lose their grip. Imagine two men laying bricks in the same cathedral, right? That old German one that took like 300 years to build. The first man has hope. He shows up thinking, I hope this leads somewhere. I hope they noticed my work. His effort is inconsistent. When it's hard, slow, or unnoticed, his mind starts negotiating. What's the point of all this? This isn't working fast enough. Where's my reward? I can't believe I have to do this every day. My children are going to have to do this, and I have to do this to support my family. The work feels heavy, repetitive, empty. His emotions rise and fall with the results of everybody and everything around him. And over time, he burns out or settles, telling himself, this is all there is. The second man, the one working right next to him, laying the same bricks in the same place. Not blind optimism, not toxic positivity. Everything's wonderful. Something grounded. I know what this builds. I know who this is making me. I know this is going to take forever and children are going to have to do it and I get to support my family, but I know I am doing something that matters. 1,000 years, people will have spiritual experiences here. Kings will be knighted here. People will get married. He shows up steady, same heat. He experiences the same repetition, same slow progress, but it's a completely different internal experience. When it's hard, that's the work. When no one's watching, that's where it counts. The brick isn't just a task. It's alignment. It's identity. I've learned to do the same thing. Doesn't matter what I'm doing for work. It's about being my best self, about bringing those around me. Even with my first job when I was at the Salvation Army in 2012, I worked at IHOP, the graveyard shift in West Palm, Okeechobee Boulevard. We had 3 strip clubs within a mile. I was running 17 tables at a time some nights. And I know some of them were just drunk and wasted and were going to run me and not tip me. But I realized because I started believing in something more, this is the opportunity to grow. Can I treat every table? Imagine they're going to give me the best tip of my career, even though I know they're going to run me, ask for refills, complain about everything and not fucking tip me. Doesn't matter. It's about my character, not about their behavior. And I used it to start building myself, believing I was made of more. And in this scenario, one man is laying bricks, a victim of circumstance. The other is building something he already sees. He's the master of the experience. That's the fucking difference. Hope waits for results to feel motivated. Belief creates results because it's anchored in meaning. Don't get me wrong. Hope is essential for the hopeless, right? In the biblical sense, in the darkest of times, that God has a plan. But when we don't move off the foundation of hope, to trust, to belief, maybe even faith, if we're lucky and if we practice and if we commit. It's not some wave of the hand and you've got faith. All your fear disappeared because you feel better, because you're in a different context in your life. It's work. barring a miracle from God. That does happen. White light moment, that kind of thing. But when we just have hope, we blame, we become resentful and angry because we judge ourselves and others for the outcomes we wanted that we didn't get. And this is where we've drifted. Effort used to inspire. Transformation used to call people forward. That's where it comes from, like in the 12-step program. It's attraction, not promotion. Now it threatens people. Those of us that are really ascending, doesn't make us better. It just means we've started changing to become more authentic with our nobility rather than slaves to our egos. We all were there. And when we come in and we start truly evolving ourselves, it exposes others' attachments and excuses and distortions. Real confidence earned through the expression and the seeking of truth often gets labeled as arrogance by those who have not done the work. Confidence will always be uncomfortable to those who have none. It used to be inspiring, and now it will expose too many who are full of shit. Because belief in oneself, belief in the process, forces a hard question they don't want to deal with. If it's possible for them, what does that mean for me? So most just attack, judge, pull down, push away. It's wild how much this happens. The attached ego will always defend itself until true willingness shows up, and we will explore all this. Without belief, we quit early, not because we're weak, but because nothing in us trusts the process. But once you felt it, even for a moment, that surrender, that alignment, that shift within you, when you expose yourself to the attachment of the ego, you don't just work harder, you work differently. Breaking that wall takes two things. A mindset that chooses truth over comfort, that's willing to question its own story, even when it hurts, especially when it hurts. A willingness not to just admit there's a problem. Right? Oh, I have a substance abuse problem. I have an anger problem. But to admit you don't yet understand yourself well enough to change. At a certain point, those of us that have been in recovery a long time, that have just found the house of stability, we will build all kinds of defense mechanisms, excuses, justifications around that ego. And I am calling to us to keep working diligently, internally, and have the courage to challenge the attachment to the ego. So we need that mindset. We also need a skill set, the actual training of your attention, your focus, your concentration, so that you can learn to manage your emotions, your physiology, your behavior. This is both technical and spiritual awareness, understanding, acceptance. Because without mindset, skill never gets practice. We don't believe in the process. And without skills, mindset is just talk. It's just projection. When those two things come together, mindset, skill set, something powerful shifts. You start to see your patterns instead of being run by them. You start to respond instead of react. You stop trying to control life and start learning how to work with the flow of life deeply inside of yourself. The paradox is that without the surrender of control, we never get control. And from there, everything changes. Not all at once, not perfectly, but predictably. Small moments of awareness turn into regulation. Regulation builds trust. Trust becomes mastery, and mastery, real mastery, is what gives you freedom. Not freedom from life. Life is still going to show up and kick your fucking ass, but freedom from within it. The ability to be guided by the intentions, by your higher values, by the nobility in your heart, instead of the automatic stories and emotions of the ego. It takes courage to trust that process. But when you can see it, map it, and practice it, you're no longer guessing. You're training. Right? Like the special forces, what we do in the military. This is no different. It's just different context. We're rewiring our brain, healing the neurotransmitter function, increasing neurobiology, opening our heart wall, and learning to master our nervous system. It's the same things, just different situations. Right? All this stuff is built for that. CBT, DBT, REBT, ACT, Smart Recovery, Refuge Recovery, 12-step program, all of it, EMDR, Psych, it's all built for this shit. That's why this matters, because this isn't another idea to believe in. It's a way to take everything we already know from the science, the psychology, and the ancient practices and turn it into something you can actually live. Because the truth is simple, but it will be fucking painful. No one said this will be easy. But with awareness, understanding, and acceptance, it's actually doable. That's what I've tried to do. Take all of it, all the information of the masters of the past, philosophies, the psychologies, and everything of the cognitive behavioral and 12 step and make it one simple, repeatable skill set that I can explain that anybody can practice. You don't need more information. That's what everybody thinks. This isn't just about information. It's about wisdom, structured, practiced, intentional wisdom. You already have way too much information that doesn't serve you. My fourth wall awakening breaks the story in the mind, the fear of the heart, the reaction in the body, turning awareness into a skill of choice and practice into change. From here, you only need to open your mind. The willingness to choose elevation over comfort and the courage to follow through. All right. So this is kind of the beginning of my fourth wall awakening. Every cause, right? Everything in us causes a corresponding damage. Every damage requires a specific repair. Recovery is not abstinence. It is reconstruction. So down here, I've got a list of causes, the damage it does, and a way we need to repair it. Chronic stress, nervous system dysregulation. How do you repair it? Breath work and learning regulation. Trauma avoidance, right? So when we hide ourselves due to trauma, we feel less than or damaged or PTSD, things like that. The amygdala becomes hyperactive. So what do we need? Exposure and processing. Instant gratification, right? Where our brain becomes dependent on a dopamine-rich environment. It creates that dopamine imbalance. And so what do we need? Effort-based reward, right? I'm going to explore all these things. Distraction, when we get so fundamentally distracted, ADHD, things like that, and it fragments our attention. What do we need? Focus training, mindfulness practices, impulsive behaviors, when we become very symptom reactive to our nervous system. What happens? Weak prefrontal control, right? The amygdala begins to swell, the prefrontal lobe activity dissipates. We need effort under resistance. These are all ways that we can train and repair ourselves. Isolation, the feeling of loneliness or being overwhelmed, generalized anxiety. We have low connection, lowered oxytocin and serotonin, community and service, comfort seeking, right? We try to get out of ourselves. So we have low stress tolerance, right? And what do we need? Change, novel experiences. So that's just kind of a framework of the damages, context, what happened, and how we can heal it. But the question I always have isn't what people think. We need more education, we need more information on what to do. We just explored it. Everybody knows what to do. If everybody just did what they already know to do, they would be living unbelievably productive and abundant lives. But we keep asking questions like we don't know enough. You don't know that you should practice breath work, metacognition, mindfulness, that you should eat better, that you should sleep right, that you should exercise, do cold exposure, right? You should practice training your attention. You should cut off unhealthy relationships. If I need to tell an alcoholic that if he doesn't want to drink, he shouldn't go to a bar, I mean, you might be too stupid for me to help. Or just too greatly in denial. I don't know. It's like you come in recovery, everybody tells you, "Yo, you need to start making better choices." Don't you know it's hurting you? What? Don't you know this could kill you? Yeah, I overdosed like fucking 20 times. What do you mean? Yeah, I'm hyper aware. Thanks for the fucking wisdom. I need to make better choices. Totally unaware of that. Thanks for like really helping me out there, dip fuck. It's amazing how many stupid things I've heard. I've even heard psychiatrists, peers of mine, colleagues, tell me they don't know why people in detox complain so much because they've had a cold before. It's not that bad. They think going through what opiates, alcohol, or benzo withdrawals is similar to having a cold. Yeah, I told them don't ever say that shit again. You sound absolutely stupid as fuck. It's it's not what because our nose runs. You think it's so hard to describe to somebody if they haven't been through it. They don't understand what it's like to be in the mind coming off of addiction and substance abuses. It's hell, right? All right, so kind of sidetracked there. So the beginning of my modality is where we meet people with the gift of desperation and the meaning of willingness, right? In recovery circles, there's a phrase people repeat often, the gift of desperation. It's the moment when suffering gets loud enough that a person finally stops pretending things are fine. Something breaks through the denial, and the quiet voice inside says something has to change. Usually the focus lands on the behavior causing the most visible damage: the drinking, the drugs, the gambling, the anger, the compulsions that have turned life into a slow burning disaster. The person becomes willing to stop that behavior, but willingness is often misunderstood. Most people think that willingness means wanting to change. The truth is, almost everyone wants to change. People struggling with addiction or chronic illness want relief desperately. It's kind of a non issue. The deeper question isn't whether someone wants a different life. The real question is whether they are willing to challenge the internal architecture that keeps producing the same outcomes. Because willingness is not about one habit. We think, I hear it all the time, almost every fucking meeting I go to, even from therapists, experts, people that have been in this a decade. The key is willingness. You have to really want that. When has wanting to get out of prison freed anybody? When has wanting to stop a behavior ever stopped it? It opens the door, right? They think willingness is the willingness to admit you have a problem, as it's so rare. Again, it's elementary school to think that's what addicts have problems with. No, we come in desperately willing to stop that one behavior. When I ask clients the first time they work with me, when I ask my patients, what's the number one goal you have? They almost always say to stay clean and sober. And it's like, I don't even know how to do that. I have zero idea beyond don't pick up, you won't get high. Don't drink, you won't get drunk. I don't know how to tell an addict not to use. The truth is, when the compulsion comes, you're probably going to use. We need to stop thinking that if we talk about our fears and consequences all the time, that'll stop us, because that's a fucking illusion. What we need to do with willingness is go a little further, right? Like the 12-step program was built on this. I mean, if you weren't willing to do the 12 steps, you weren't allowed in a fucking meeting. If you don't know this, for many years when the 12-step program first began, when AA first began, if you walked in the door as a newcomer, people would meet you at the door and they would ask you two questions. Do you believe you're an alcoholic? If the answer is yes. The second question is, do you believe no human power can relieve your alcoholism? Which means that you've tried on your own and that you're fucking desperate as shit. You're desperate to be open and willing to new ideas, not just stop drinking, to challenge your ego, to be willing to surrender the attachments to your ego to a higher purpose, a higher cause, a higher power. What they called God at the time, what we can still refer to as God or a higher power or a higher principles. It doesn't really matter. Something beyond your own ego. Now, what, 5-10% of people I know go to meetings even do the steps? And you would have to do all of it. If you said yes to both questions, they would take you in the back room and you would do like 4 or 5 steps that day. You would finish this second time you come, and you'd be sponsoring people in weeks. Because the whole point was the willingness to map the ego, surrender the attachments, align with the higher meaning, higher purpose, and elevate your perspectives. Now we come in and we're willing to not use, but we're not willing to let go of the attachments to the ego. We're not even willing to map it anymore. We'd rather be right and suffer our whole lives. And what I've created here, this mountain of willingness, right? You come in willing to not use, but what about relationships or legal issues or health or financial problems? You hit this wall of the ego. And who's to blame? My partner's the problem. I'm still got to stress about bills and taxes. I still got to overreact to my pet peeves. Traffic is still stressful. What we're stuck at is the wall of righteousness, the wall of attachment to the ego. Once you start to surrender these attachments, right, these things don't have to be stressful. You don't have to blame your partner for them ignoring you. Maybe they're just struggling, or maybe they're overwhelmed. Doesn't mean they don't love you. You don't have to fear the health of your future. You don't have to be stressed by financial problems. You have a 100% survival rate. Traffic does not have to create distress within you. These are walls, and this wall can go, once you remove it, you can climb all the way up the mountain of change to change your perspective and your attitude about childhood trauma, grief, the biggest things in your life. That's the whole point of recovery. You're recovering an authentic connection with your higher self and surrendering all the illusion of control to a higher purpose, a higher power, and controlling what you can control, which is your perceptions, your attitudes, and your effort and energy. It's built around all the teachings in history, but because so few people are doing it now and so few people even understand this, we think it's about the substances. What do I got here? This is where things start to get uncomfortable. The ego has a brilliant defense system. It protects identity even when that identity is built of suffering. It clings to familiar beliefs, rehearses narratives that justify our reactions, and deploys defense mechanisms to keep those structures intact. Cognitive distortions quietly bend reality so the story still makes sense. And when the cracks begin to show, the mind often resolves to tension through cognitive dissonance, twisting the interpretation of events so the house doesn't have to be rebuilt, right? We're so comfortable in our ego. Same in recovery, right? I've made some things that we've been aware of this for a very long time in the clinical and therapeutic community, right? Why we cling to beliefs that hurt us. We have a fixed mindset. Carol Dweck and her team from Stanford, the brilliant work she has done with the book Mindset, right? Fixed mindset, growth mindset. For the record, if you don't have a growth mindset, I don't consider you in recovery. I don't care about your clean time. I don't care about your sober time. I don't care about anything else. And yes, I judge you. You judge me, I judge you. I don't look down on you, but I have worked very diligently on building myself, not just beyond my addiction, healing. I have a different mind, a different body, and I'm not special. I did it through hard work, and I can tell you how I did it, what it was like. I've guided thousands of others. It doesn't make me right. However, I am expressing myself because that's what we do. And I am using all the knowledge of history and modern science to back up every point I say, including Bill W., Dr. Bob, and Wally P. all agree with everything I'm saying, but nobody wants to listen because we protect our ego because of our little comfort in our house's stability, right? So we have fixed mindset, cognitive dissonance, which we mapped in the 90s, confirmation bias, especially today with social media, and we mapped this in 1998 before the internet was even close to what it is today. We also have emotional reinforcement, right? Information biases. I have a diagnosis in my book I call ideological personality fixation. When you find yourself in a new group and you fit in and it makes you feel like you belong, you can build your entire identity around this ideology and you become very self-righteous and arrogant, and you use the ideology to feel like you're living in a state of righteousness when it's just ego protecting itself. Okay, now let's get to the House OU. What I've done here, all right, I didn't really create this. I stole some of the ideas from neuroscience and I just kind of advanced it a little bit. I used everything to back me up. Okay, so why this matters before I get deep into it. All the modalities that at the core are these next two things, the House OU and the practice of peace. I'm going to explain them, but just for some. Why this matters. When we try to change behavior alone, we are essentially trying to repair the roof, right? So the roof is up here. You're looking for consistent success. So we try to change our personality, right? So which is just repeated patterns of behavior. That's our personality, right? Beneath that is our thoughts, feelings, our impulses, right? Moment to moment, our nervous system, the way we react. At the bottom is our beliefs and our physiology, right? The way our core beliefs affect our perceptions, our attitudes, and our nervous system's reactions, right? At the core, that's it, beliefs and physiology. But we constantly try to change our behavior patterns. How's that working out for you? I mean, you know how many people I've met in my life that have consistency? I've seen many. I mean, there's you got David Goggins and Jacko Wilkins and Gary Brucka and Peter. Many people I've studied, researched, follow have some consistency in their life that they don't procrastinate. They reach their goals. They continue to strive. But the vast majority of us and almost everybody I've ever met, I've literally met less than 5 people in my entire life that have consistency. And what we're talking about is not black and white. It's not that they do everything perfectly. It's the effort is consistent. They control what they can control. They're no longer slaves to their ego. They're continuing to grow because they've learned to map the house of you. They no longer live on the ego path, which is the left side, right? So it's a victim mindset. The narratives of the lies they have, the core of fear in the heart, impulsive, compulsive, and habitual behaviors. They see everything as a problem rather than opportunities. They see everything as hurdles that they have to overcome instead of feeling gratitude for, it's all perspective shift. They complain about things rather than seeing purpose in things. They feel lost and alone instead of feeling connected and like they belong, right? It's just perceptions and attitudes. You're either on the ego path, the ego side of the house of you, or you're on the growth path, what Carol Dweck would call the growth mindset, right? Where you're elevating your perspectives and your attitudes. Because this is what we can control. The only things we can control is right here: peace, perception, effort, attitude, concentration, and energy. And the reason why it's at the center of everything, because right here, why this matters: when we try to change behavior alone, we are essentially trying to repair the roof while ignoring the structure of the house itself. But when we understand the whole system, beliefs, narratives, heart, nervous system, and behavior, we can begin to rebuild the house from the inside out, from the ground up. That is where the real work begins. What becomes fascinating, what I learned in all these years, is how many different disciplines quietly align with this exact structure. Cognitive behavioral therapy teaches that distorted thoughts shape emotions and behavior. In the House of U terms, the narratives of the main floor influence the emotional behavioral outcomes that appear in the roof. Rational emotive behavioral therapy, by the way, I'm a smart recovery instructor as well, which use both of these modalities, sharpens the insight even further. Albert Ellis argued that it is not the event itself that creates emotional suffering, but the belief about the event. The storm may hit in the house, but the stability of the structure depends on what is happening in the basement. Acceptance and commitment therapy, one of my favorite like worksheet modalities, adds another dimension. Rather than trying to defeat thoughts, it teaches people to change their relationship to them and align behavior with deeply held values. That maps directly onto the heart space of the house, where willingness, surrender, and alignment with what is meaningful begin to reshape behavior. Dialectical behavioral therapy focuses heavily on emotional regulation, distress tolerance, and mindfulness. In the House of You language, it recognizes that the heart and nervous systems are overwhelmed. Clarity becomes difficult to access, right? So we have to go beneath and challenge it. Schema therapy, maybe one of the closest parallels. It proposes that early life experiences create deep internal templates: abandonment, mistrust, emotional deprivation, defectiveness, that quietly organize around how we interpret reality as adults. In other words, the basement is already built long before we consciously enter the house. All right, then you got attachment theory, trauma research, polyvagal theory, mindfulness practices, Stoic philosophy, 12-step spirituality, neuroscience. It all points to the same thing, right? We put these threads together, a shared sequence begins to appear. Experience creates how we interpretation and our emotional responses. Those become our body state. Over time, it's our behaviors, and as we reinforce it with identity, those beliefs become the narratives of the mind, our hearts living in fear or love, and our nervous systems trained reaction to it that we identify as behaviors, and then we do them over and over until we understand them as consistency in our personality. Okay, let me take a breath now. So the point of all this is that why I think this is so important, right? Think about how complicated to learn all these different modalities. And I could have added another 20, by the way. Easily. I could have added another 20. Right. And so I've tried to simplify it. I've spent a very long time, decades, figuring out how to do it for myself and how to teach it to others. So fourth wall awakening is simplifying all of it into a simple skill set, right? That we can train ourselves with a few contexts. Right? First, we have to believe healing is real, and we have to have the courage. This is what makes me angry, that the community and medical field as a whole doesn't believe in healing anymore. How many people do you know healed from a chronic illness? Addiction, mental health, cardiovascular disease, obesity, diabetes. Is it not possible? Right? You ask almost anybody, especially addicts and therapists in recovery that work in recovery, people in long-term recovery. Can a person who is an addict heal their brain? Can they no longer be an addict? They will tell you absolutely not. Once an addict, always an addict. Yeah, that's not true. It's not true. Is the potential always there? Of course, but that doesn't mean anything. The potential for anybody to be an addict is always there. But what are we doing in recovery if we're not healing? Then it's just abstinence. If we don't believe in healing, I just explored, we will not commit to the process of healing. You do what you believe. What you believe is what you achieve. This has been so well established for thousands of fucking years. And then understanding addiction in the brain. Like I give an example. I have a friend who was a military guy, and he was a raging alcoholic for a couple of years, wound up fucking his life up completely, was homeless, and he can drink now, smoke weed, no compulsion. Many people have healed. There's many alcoholics who can drink. Now, I'm not saying that you or you're at that space. I'm not saying it's me. Even though I do believe my brain is radically different. I am as sure as I can be without testing the theory that if I was to use today, tomorrow I would have no compulsion. It would actually be the opposite. Because my brain is different than it was a couple years ago. I believe in myself. I don't feel all alone in the world. I don't feel suicidal because of my disability. I don't need the substance to make me feel okay. Yes, healing is real. Now, it's not black and white. That's what everybody thinks. Either you're a sick addict and you're always going to be an addict, or you're a perfect, healed human being. No, it's a scale. It's a pendulum, right, that we're moving across. And yes, we can go back, but that doesn't mean our brain needs to remain the same. And until our leadership begins to believe healing is possible, we will not see healing. I'm sorry. We have to be honest about this. It's time. All right, so this is the longest video I've made. Let me give some of the context of how this works. We can use environment to elevate the experience, like putting your feet on earth at the beach, doing rock wall climbing, playing a sport, a competition. But really, what it is, it's metacognition, challenging your perceptions and your attitudes. And you start with training your attention, your concentration and focus, right? Perception, effort, attitude, concentration, energy. Energy means focus, breath. Where attention goes, energy flows, right? So you're training your attention in the moment. And you can do it in three ways. Sit back and practice mindfulness, meditation, breathe, focus on the sensation in your body, bring in something stressing you out, breathe, surrender it in your mind, open the heart, surrender it in your body. And if you want to change the way you relate to a situation, and you don't start with childhood trauma, right? This is a skill. So you start with something simple, something you feel guilty about recently. You let yourself down, you let a loved one down, you didn't follow through with a goal, right? Lay there, close your eyes, breathe. Think about the guilt, the shame, and the regret. Notice how it looks in your mind, how you think about it, how it feels in your body, how your heart tightens up, how you judge yourself. Don't run from it. Map it, identify it, name it. Then take a deep breath. Trust the process of surrender. Surrender to God. You say you got a relationship with God or a higher power, then practice surrendering it to them. If you don't do it, it doesn't happen. You have a role to play in your own healing. Barring a miracle from God. I can't believe I have to say this all the time because it does happen. But it's like that's what we pretend to happen for almost everybody I know in long-term recovery that hasn't really healed them, started healing themselves. They're still the same personality they were a year into their recovery, whether they're 5, 10, 15 fucking years. The vast majority of people I know. And I'm not looking down on you. I'm just trying to be honest. Yes, I know truth will hurt, and I know it's going to piss people off. And if my words piss you off, you might want to take a look at why. Because all I'm trying to do is say the same things Bill W., Dr. Bob, and Wally P. say. You say you care about the program. You say you're all committed to this 12-step thing in this recovery community. What's more important, you protecting your wounded ego or us becoming better leaders? Seeing much better outcomes. Millions of families, millions, get destroyed every fucking year because we refuse to understand addiction for what it is. Because our leadership, our medical and therapeutic world has continued to think that what we need is fear of consequences. We need more guilt, more shame. We need to play the tape through, keep it green, remember where we came from over and over and over. We need to talk about the substance, talk about the relapse, talk about the triggers. The more you resist, the more it persists. What we need is fucking healing. No addict. I mean, it's 1 in a fucking million is going to stop themselves from using when they are at the highest compulsion. I have asked thousands of addicts, right? I can't ask people in long-term recovery because they'll lie, because they'll protect their ego. But I ask people in treatment all the time and people that look up to me that I work with or at least respect me. How many times have you been on your way? You're at a 7 to 10 of an impulse to use. You're on your way to use, to the liquor store, to the drug dealer, knowing there's going to be a direct consequence. Telling yourself, I hate this, turn around, turn around. Oh my God, you're going to make your loved one cry. You might lose your kid. You might lose your job over this. What, you were fucking, oh, the insanity. You expected a different result. No, you didn't. We are so full of shit. The insanity of addiction is doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result. Who the fuck expected a different result? This time when you relapse, you thought you were going to have a good time and no consequences and everybody was going to support you. Really? That's what you thought? No, it's not. Most of the time, we don't even need an excuse. Just Captain Fuck It. That's why I named my book, How Captain Fuck It What. Because once he shows up, we don't give a shit because we have a brain disorder. You're not going to will yourself to turn around. It's 1 in a million. I don't care if you relapse. I care about one thing, that you survive it. Relapse is part of the process. Every real addict is probably going to, it's almost 100%. But we have weaponized this sobriety idea over recovery so much that when somebody relapses, they lie to everybody because nobody's going to support them. And the truth is, we say it all the time. We're all one bad decision, one bad day away from a relapse. Well, if it's a fucking choice, why would we say that? Nothing we say makes sense. Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result is the definition of practice. Ask Edison. We do the same thing over and over, knowing exactly what the results are going to be. We know how much we're going to hate it. We know we're going to hate ourselves. We're not even going to have fun. We know. We hear the story in the back of our mind. The guilt rests in our body. The fear and shame. We don't turn around because we have a fucking brain disease. But yeah, let's just keep pretending for your comfort, for our leaders' comfort, for our therapeutic communities' unwillingness to do the deeper work, to challenge the ego, to lean into discomfort, right? So sitting with it, mapping it, surrendering it, and then pulling something powerful into your heart, a powerful moment, a beautiful moment of holding your child or being held as a child or playing with your favorite puppy or kitten, a moment with a friend, feel it in your heart, feel it in your body, then the narratives in your mind. You need coherence if you want change. I am deserving of love. I am a good person. You need to have a coherent experience for change to take place, right? That's one way to practice peace. The second one is simple goals. Here, a major fucking issue in all of our society, not just in recovery and mental health spaces and motivational speeches and all this shit. It's not about motivating more. It's about a skill set and a mindset. The rep, let's say you set a goal. The goal isn't the goal. The outcome is not the goal. You cannot control outcome. If your goal is to wake up every morning, go get your feet on the earth, go to sunrise and do breath work, there's no way you can control that outcome. Someday your tire might be flat. An emergency might happen. You might get hurt. You can't control outcome. You can control effort. And where does effort exist? In that space, when it's time to do the goal, the metacognitive, putting the internal landscape on the big screen of our conscious awareness, notice our perceptions and our attitudes, and ask, why am I thinking this? Why am I feeling this, right? What is at the core of it? Why am I telling myself, you know what, I'll start tomorrow. I'm tired. My back hurts. I was up late last night. I'll feel better if I just start tomorrow, if I just hit snooze. All lies. But we're so used to just reacting to our excuses. Captain Fuckett shows up and makes us feel a thing and makes us think a thing, and we don't know how to challenge it, so we don't do the thing. This is why nobody has consistency, because it's the wrong mindset and the wrong skill set. We keep forcing ourselves to focus on behavior at the top of the house you rather than the core, and getting to understand why we make excuses, why we feel what we feel and think what we think, and learning to surrender them, and then pulling a new story, intentionally creating a story. You know what? I know I'll feel better. If I get up and put effort into my morning routine, I know I'll feel better. Truth. So scary. I know it's hard. You think I don't know this? You think this was easy for me? I've transformed from a suicidal, homeless fucking junkie. I've relapsed over 200 times, cold turkeyed every time. I was homeless over 10 years. More than anything, I have a spinal disability that causes me constant pain that nobody will ever see. The reason why I always look like I'm in shape, because that's the only way I can deal with it. I have never slept through a night in my entire fucking life. without strong drugs like heroin. And even then, I would still only get like 4 hours at a time and wake up with my whole body in spasm every night my entire life, and nobody can ever see it. I overcame it. I still have to deal with it, but it empowers me today because I went down the house to you and I transformed my perceptions and my attitude about my disability. It is now my greatest asset, and I am my greatest ally, not my worst enemy. And all I did is do what they told me to do. I had the courage to map my own ego, to sit with the discomfort of my own mind, my own heart, my own body, and learn to master my nervous system, learn to change the narratives of my mind, think differently, feel differently, and be differently. I embody the change we talk about. I am not special. I am not unique. I have an obsession with understanding this and helping others understand this. So that's one context, sitting with it. The second is setting goals. The smaller, the better. Remember, the goal isn't the goal. Peace is. You have to practice peace, concentration, perceptions, attitude, energy. Third one, little things that happen throughout the day. Everything from stubbing your toe to traffic. I started using everything as an opportunity. I use work, whatever situation I'm doing. If somebody cuts me off, thank you for the opportunity to process my anger. People might think I'm crazy, but you know what? I care more about what people think? My healing, my consistency, me evolving my consciousness and being of service to the people I love and the community I care about. The legacy of service. And the only way to do that was to become my best self. I had to take responsibility and stop fearing accountability. Responsibility is the meaning of life. Accountability helps give you purpose, but we fear it like it's some kind of burden. This is my message to anybody that wants to heal, and especially the leaders in our community. We are more, we must do more, and we can be more, and we know how. You can use my fourth wall awakening to understand what changes within yourself and then apply it to any context you want. I don't know what context you want to join, what group, what fellowship. I pray everybody that I get to help joins a 12-step community. But I also pray that they learn how to map their ego so that when they do the 12-step work, they understand it enough. They have enough awareness, because what I got was my seeking of understanding was just overthinking it. Because the only thing that outweighed most of the people I saw wisdom from ignorance was their arrogance about how righteous they were and how much they understood it. The Dunning-Kruger effect, wearing recovery as body armor. That is where my anger comes from, is that the unwillingness to explore deeper truths, to keep it on the surface, because so few of us have actually transformed our personality. We just celebrate clean time and sober time as if it's the same thing. We have put the bar in hell and wonder why nobody is fucking getting better. We are better. We can do better. I am the Recovery Ronin. Thank you for your time. I honor you.